All right, folks. Well, I'm really here with an amazing figure in the world of oncology, Dr. Doug Flora, who I'm a big fan of. And I really appreciate the fact that you came on my humble show. Thank you, Doug, for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
So I just want to start by letting people know who you are and what you do. And you've had an amazing career over the past 20 plus years. I gave away your age right there, right now. But just tell us a little bit what you do now and how did you come to where you are right now on the medical side from a clinical perspective?
Sure. Well, it's been a long and winding road, and a lot of doors open that I hadn't anticipated wanting to walk through, but I've been open to that, and it's led to some interesting things. So, for those of you that don't know me, I'm a practicing medical oncologist here in the Midwest. I'm the chief clinical officer for a round of 5 cancer centers throughout Kentucky and Indiana, Northern Kentucky, just outside of Cincinnati. I'm the executive medical director for St. Elizabeth Healthcare's oncology service line, and I get to sit in this beautiful Taj Mahal of cancer centers that we built about 4 or 5 years ago as our flagship. Hobbies would be I got really involved in the national discussions. Like you, I wanted to have a voice, and too often physicians are too busy to do so. When I moved to my administrative role, where it's I'm split between clinic and this office, I realized that I had a forum through which I might express myself. And so did that in a variety of fashions. I'm involved actively with the American Cancer Society on our regional board here. I'm the incoming president-elect for the Association of Community Cancer Care, which is an organization I absolutely love, the nuts and bolts of how to get stuff done in oncology. And then, as you know, you and I discussed in our pre-discussions, my super fun role right now is the editor-in-chief of AI and Precision Oncology. It's the first peer-reviewed journal attacking those topics.
So when do you sleep?
Yeah, I'm one of those lucky people. I don't need a lot of sleep. I am a pretty functional 6 hour sleep person, but most of my life is automated now with AI. So a lot of the things that many people spend their days on, I've figured out tools that will make me a bit more efficient. So I've made a couple extra hours a day too.
For those who are watching this show or listening to this show, I am speaking with the real Doug Flora. It's not really a chat bot. I mean, we
It's an
think
avatar, yes.
we don't know yet. It's not an avatar. But Doug, let's try to dissect this a little bit. So you see patients. I mean, you can't be seeing patients 5 days a week. I mean, do you? I mean,
I'm 1 day a week, 1 day a week in clinic. And to be fair, it's not a super active clinic. It's mostly holdovers from my life of practice. So because of my administrative duties, I'm up here 4 days a week. And so I don't have a lot of super complicated stuff. I don't take care of testicular cancers or lymphomas or leukemias. It's mostly my chronic stable of old friends and survivors, and then some people who've been fortunate enough to do very well and are still with me many years through the practice.
it's very gratifying to see the survivors who have done really well. So you're for all practical purposes, you're more of a hybrid community academic setting. You have a lot of academic flavor to what you're doing, but obviously you're not university based. I know you're very passionate about research and clinical trials and clinical research. How are you able to bring the trials and research to a community setting and deliver the kind of care that you want to deliver?
I mean, that's the mission here. So we call it a community academic hybrid. There's about 60 providers here in our system fighting cancer. We do have a very robust phase 1 menu. We've got bispecifics. We've got a clinical research institute that's associated here that coincidentally my younger brother runs. He's an MD, PharmD, and an oncologist. And a very robust menu. A lot of CRCs and CRNs running around downstairs right now, following patients even on phase 1 trials. So we also built a Center for Precision Medicine Genomic Health that lets us really practice very forward-thinking molecular medicine, true personalized medicine, not the hype, where we've got a molecular tumor board. We have 2.5 pharmacogenomic pharmacists, 20 genetic counselors, and so on. So it's definitely starting to flirt with those NCI designates without the translational research.
Yeah. So what the specific topic I wanted to talk to you about is more on AI and precision oncology. And I know you're interested in both. And in fact, that's really probably led to the birth of AI and Precision Oncology Journal. Can you just talk a little bit about this journal? Like how did this happen that you made a decision? How do you even get to launch a journal? Who do you talk to? How do you do that?
That's what I talked about, some of those doors that open. I'll tell you probably the baseline, especially for those that are listening to you that are in their, in their 30s, still making their bones. I just would encourage people to have a bias towards action. I read a lot about AI in my administrative role, trying to solve problems with lack of staffing. There just aren't enough people to take care of all the cancer patients that are out there. I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and I love efficiencies, and tech delivers a lot of those where we're not doing the rote mechanical things that numb us every day, like fighting for prior auths and things like that, physician documentation. And I couldn't find anywhere to read about this stuff. This is back in probably 2018, 2017. I started reading about AI, got really interested in it a couple years later, and started talking about it nationally, maybe in 2000, I'm sorry, 2020-ish, something like that. Yeah. And I couldn't find any peer-reviewed stuff. So JCO Informatics, which was run at the time by my friend Deborah Patt, was fantastic, but it was probably not digestible for those of us that aren't coders. It was a little dense for me at that point. Hopefully now I've caught up. But I wanted to do something that was digestible, something like The Oncologist. I'm sure you've read that in the past.
Yep.
Clear, succinct reviews, very readable, very digestible stuff. And so that's been our push from the beginning, is to just try and make this stuff democratized for the oncologists that don't have time to dig in on, the specific differences between different large language models.
Okay, so your target audience is general oncologists who are interested in AI, but what out there is a bit too complex for them.
Yeah, I think that's what our whole editorial board leaned into. Is I reached out to each one of these luminaries. We've got chairs of departments at MGH, and Stanford. We've got people that run Thomas Jefferson, people who've spent their entire career doing really strong research on AI tools. And I wanted the physicians to vet these things. There's a ton of hype out there. There's some fantastic products. But for the most part, we're hearing a lot from vendors and not a lot from physicians yet. And you're about the same age as I am. I would presume you remember when Epic hit and Cerner hit, and we were asleep at the wheel. And instead of a real helpful medical tool, we got billing software. And I didn't want that to happen again as AI arrived. I wanted to have providers at the table who could speak this language and talk to hospital systems and payers and legislators, and make sure that the things that we build are actually friendly for the end user and protect the patients in our charge.
This is an online journal, or is it also in print?
It's both. We publish every other month. There's always pre-releases online. I think we just hit our 50,000th full download. It's in many dozens of countries. And it's been a real fun ride. It was kind of a lark when I started. I actually contacted a publisher in New Rochelle, just north of Manhattan. And they were looking for AI things as I was telling them I really wanted to build something like this. And Marianne Liebert has been fantastic to work with as a publisher. They're a big publisher of scientific things like Gen Biotech and the leading journal in thyroid. Very, very innovative stuff with precision medicine as well, with Inside Precision Medicine.
Yeah, I have read actually several articles and I love it. It is subscription though, right? Like you have to pay to get subscription. It's not free, correct?
Yeah, so apparently this is how it works. And again, I don't know this as a provider traditionally, but yeah, people have the option to purchase open source. And so if a submitter of a manuscript wants it to be free and open for everyone, I think the publisher assesses a fee for that. Otherwise, you upset your subscribers. And so what we'll usually do is we'll have our stuff be unembargoed for 30 days or something, so that, and I share a lot of screenshots of things. We try and be respectful of our subscribers, but we also want to make sure that we get the word out about these important topics. And so most of this stuff I'm sharing on LinkedIn every day. I write about it almost daily. And then you and I have connected on Substack, which is a new version of kind of Medium, where I get to do much longer, thoughtful pieces about that will ultimately be book chapters going into a book on this topic.
You're actually very active on Substack and on LinkedIn, and I wish I can match your. I'm trying. I can't keep up it, but it's important. It's important to spread the word. So I congratulate you for that. So Doug, let's talk a bit about precision oncology and AI, just like for, I know that, again, it's a very broad topic. When I say AI and precision oncology, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Like just the first thing.
I just think it's driving smarter cancer care. That's a big credo around here. We see that we're overwhelmed. We see that we are poorly aimed and poorly strategized against these tumors. And over the course of our 20 plus years, you've seen the impact of targeted therapies, right? You've seen the importance of identifying a target, drugging undruggable things, previously undruggable things, and the outsized impact that can have on patients. But still, about 80% of patients treated in the community don't have next generation sequencing. Very, very few people are even experimenting with MRD, really, or MCED, which is the next generations that we'll probably see instituted. And I just want to start the conversations. These tools are not fully formed. They have not replaced all standards of care in all aspects, but I wanted to have a forum for our place to discuss these in an intelligent fashion. So we've got this molecular tumor board. We've got these pharmacogenomic pharmacists, and we're having very high level discussions here at St. Elizabeth about how to apply these things in the real world, in the community.
Right. So let's step back a little bit. At least when I think of precision oncology, I'm thinking molecular, molecular, molecular. How do I look at the DNA, the RNA, the proteins of a particular tumor,
Mm-hmm.
and how this may drive clinical care and decision making, like whatever I'm going to do. Um, and at least when I was a resident, all cancers were the same. I mean, lung cancer was either small cell or non-small cell, and that's really it.
Right.
And now it's about 50 types. So how does AI apply to that? Like, I'm trying, like, is it just machine learning and analyzing the genomics? What are we trying to, are we talking about AI applying into the molecular findings, or it's more than that?
I think it's, today, let's talk today and then we can talk tomorrow. Today, it's incredibly powerful pattern recognition. So most of the devices that have been approved by the FDA are things that read patterns, radiology being the leading things, all the things that can read CT scans and MRI and PET, ultrasound, mammogram, um, digital pixelated slides with greater alacrity. Those are here, ready, done and dusted. These tools are already FDA approved and in use downstairs right now. Where I see molecular medicine moving next, we've got many, many targets. There's many more to come. But what happens when we start applying this AI pattern recognition in 2025 to circulating tumor DNA? And we're getting there, right? And I'm not suggesting that MCED has arrived. I think MRD is really gonna take over a lot this year based upon what we've just reviewed at ASCO in Chicago last month. But I'm very eager for these technologies to have good clinical trials showing demonstrable benefits. And I'll give you the examples. Some of the MRD tools are now shown as, talk about melanoma, they're much more predictive and prognostic than even lymph node positivity. But there's a paucity of people using these for melanoma, triple negative breast, ovarian. We all know the colon and rectal stuff is pretty strong and NCCN listed, but these other things are not that far behind. That's AI, guys. That's using AI to do pattern recognition at the cellular level to separate all the cell-free DNA from all the more clinically relevant ctDNA. We couldn't do that unless we have these pattern recognizers to tell us which cells mattered. And so I don't know that people understand that that's applied AI as well. All of these tests that you're sending off for next generation, when you send off Tempus or Caris or Guardant or Natera, these are all AI-driven tests. And we're using them all day long, every day, but you don't understand how the test is conducted. And that's a lot of AI, a lot of pattern recognition.
I don't think people realize this is AI, to be honest.
Well, I mean, we all know about cell-free DNA, but it has clouded the picture because we all have it. And now the pattern recognizers are able to say at the molecular level, these things matter. This is tumor DNA that shouldn't be there, or soon orphan RNA. And we saw major, major strides forward last October when the Nobel Prize was awarded in chemistry and physics to AI-driven tools. But it was three people. It was John Jumper and Demis Hassabis and David Baker combined David Baker's protein studies with DeepMind's ability to unfold and refold proteins. And it's really revolutionized the way that we're going to attack drug design in the future. We now can identify every possible permutation of a protein. We really did uncode the building blocks of life last year. And I don't know that we've seen anything like that in my career.
Indeed. One of the things that I would like if you ask me what I would like to see with AI in precision oncology, and maybe we're heading there. On a very clinical care level, I'd like to be able to see a patient that I otherwise would have given adjuvant therapy for. And in adjuvant therapy, we're over treating thousands of people. We all know that. That's unfortunate, but that's the name of the game. We have to overtreat to save lives of fewer people. I would love for us to get to a point where I can look a patient in the eye, let's say stage 3 colorectal cancer with node positive disease, where you would absolutely have given chemotherapy to, and say, you know what? My AI tool tells me that you don't need chemotherapy. How far are we from there?
Man, I think we're within a couple of years. 2,
Okay.
4. Think of it this way. So our jobs as oncologists, we have been reading the middle chapters of every book, right? These tumors started in the early chapters, they were invisible, they were undetectable. And then those mutations and these tumors grew for years, acquiring more pathogenic mutations, becoming more resistant, establishing a deeper foothold with just vascularity and getting blood supply. I would say that we understand as oncologists that the earlier we find a cancer, the better, right? That's not heresy. Is it that big a leap to say we should be doing studies looking at things like MRD, where we go back to the earlier chapters in the book and say, what if we instrumented a clinical trial when you turn MRD positive and we gave a non-toxic therapy, say a vaccine, say 2 cycles of something like Keytruda to a healthy patient who had a biochemical marker that suggested a terrible prognosis? Because they do across the board, across all tumors. MRD turning positive is an absolutely devastating clinical marker. We know this. That is well established. So what if we found a clinical trial ecosystem that could introduce gentler therapies in those faintest footsteps before the mutations occurred, before the blood vessel supply was initiated, when those were truly whispers? I would love to study that, man. I think that that's where we're going to make meaningful differences, not when we can see it on a CAT scan. And I would say this sounds maybe a little bit early. I am early here, but we do it for CML today, right? We've been trained to look for complete molecular remission for that tumor for a decade. We get our international scores, and I make therapeutic changes all the time based upon if I lose a couple zeros after the decimal. So I don't think this is as crazy as it sounds. We just need those trials to say that impacting the patient's life at this early sign of recurrence, even when radiographically NED, might defer or delay the resultant disease progression. Or if our therapies are really targeted and really good, what happens if you do that with an ALK mutation or an EGFR exon 19 with a targeted therapy? Do we convert these diseases to chronic diseases where every ALK positive patient can expect 9 or 10 or 11 years? Again, we have to do the studies. That's why I have a peer-reviewed journal, is because I want to encourage that sort of study to be done. But I'm tired of going after stage 4 cancers with drug A and B versus drug A, B, and C to gain 6 weeks for $150,000 of cancer drug. That just doesn't seem like we're spending our money in the best preventative fashion.
For sure. So in technology, Doug, there are the early adapters. There are the laggards that they will adapt, but a little bit later. And there are the skeptics. When you face the skeptics, what are the top few things that they challenge you with, that they like doubt that any of this is real? What do you hear out there from folks who are skeptical about AI in oncology or in precision oncology?
I just to stay on path with that MRD stuff. I think the valid and legitimate question I hear the most from my partners downstairs, we're split about half and half. We've got 4 or 5 early adopters that are using it across many of their tumors. We've got some that really say, what in the heck am I supposed to do when this number changes? And I still have no evidence that it's disease on the CT scan because there is no published evidence that intervening at that point can make a difference for this particular tumor. That's why we need the trials. And I completely agree with that. I don't want to be treating patients. And I want to be clear, I'm not based upon their early MRD positivity in melanoma or breast. I'm really curious, what if I could? What if I did? And that's where we look to some of these leading NCI designated centers and some of these vendor relationships to say, there are 5 or 6 really good companies that are striving to find oxygen in this MRD space. The ones that are probably going to win are the ones that are investing in attaching the MRD to an intervention so that we can prove 3 years down the road more than just a suspected benefit.
Amazing. So, want to shift just a little bit because about how AI is integrated or is important for cancer care delivery. Um, there's a lot. It takes a village to deliver cancer care, whether it is drug, device, whatever it is. Where's AI fitting there? Um, this is shifting from precision oncology. I'm trying just to think. I was intrigued by when you said that AI is helping automating some of your just job functions and daily functions work-wise. Um, are there areas where you're seeing AI being applied in how we deliver care beyond just the prescribing and making a decision at the point of care type of thing? Am I making sense in my question?
Sure, of course. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we really want as doctors is what will make a difference for us. And, we're busy oncologists and we say, gosh, if I could clone myself, or if I could only find 2 more hours a day, that's what I'm striving to do is become the most efficient, most effective version of myself, because that means I'm better for each of my patients. I could spend more time with them if I'm not looking at the computer documenting. I can make better decisions if I have all of the available information available to me at the moment that I need to make a decision. I can make better decisions when there's clinical decision support to tell me the things that I may not know, may not recall, may not have access to. And all of these are in various states of development. None of them is fully fledged. I think we're in the Fisher Price era of AI. I think we're probably 5%, 10% through this growth curve of what we're going to be able to do 2 or 3 years from now. But I'll use some concrete examples. I was privileged to speak with Deborah Patt and Ravi Parikh at ASCO this year on some of these things. And we really tried to talk about the actual today, not just tomorrow. And so Deborah spoke about what they're doing at Texas Oncology, which, as you know, is one of the largest practices in the country. They've been using good clinical decision support for about 2 years, real AI-driven clinical decision support with great success. They have, I think, 1,008 doctors using a version of the Ambient Scribe software to do their documentation. Our place at St. Elizabeth, we've got GI Genius reading colonoscopies and telling endoscopists where to biopsy. It's reading our mammograms downstairs with a yellow box, a green box, or a red box, calling attention to discrete areas that they need to pay more or less attention to. We are using tools every day at your hospital and mine, whether you know it or not, to identify those patients who are most likely to be readmitted or go to the ER or present with sepsis. Those are AI tools that are using pattern recognition to say, listen, of the 300 people you discharged today, we think these 13 are at risk. Have your nurse practitioner see them within 72 hours. These other people don't need that. We're getting tools like that for mammography now. We know that we do mammography in about 88% of women who will never, ever, ever develop breast cancer, statistically speaking. Why are we screening them? We should be using smarter tools to identify those women who are at real risk. Those people, they get MRI, they get ctDNA, they get whatever it is that we can throw at them because we know that they have a very high likelihood of this. And I'm just excited to see this stuff get there. We're still 3 to 5 years away from some of these things being actualized in a real community setting. But the tools are here. And as you said, those 2.5% early adopters are starting to understand them. And I think we start to speak to that middle part of the bell curve in the next 2 years where you say, wow, this stuff is really powerful.
So you're trying to see a lot of vendors looking, and private companies and maybe trying to identify these areas. I think the field is getting a bit too crowded though. Like I feel like everybody is everybody just slaps the word AI on their company, whatever they're doing, because it's the uh, buzz of the day. It's becoming it,
Yeah.
like you're the expert, but put yourself in the shoes of an average consumer, like
Mhm.
just an average consumer, not even in medicine, right? It's becoming challenging to separate signals from noise.
Oh gosh, it really is. And that's actually what's driven me professionally for the last 3 or 4 years is to try and help put together those physicians who are trained, who do read these studies to try and guide the rest of them. Because my doctors downstairs are fantastic humans, incredible oncologists, way better oncologists than I am at this part-time admin role. But they don't have time
Right.
to spend time at conferences talking about these things. They don't have time to sit down and read the things that I'm reading. I get 40 manuscripts a month that let me stay a little bit ahead of things. And so do my partners. I have a bunch of partners that do this. There are probably 45 people on our editorial board, and we're trading best practices between our centers. There's a great AI community of practice. For those of you that are ASCO members that want to get on ASCO and just join in there and watch the conversations, because a lot of people are asking the questions you may be having. And I think that's a really, really powerful tool. And then again, read the things that you have time to read, listen to podcasts, and try and say, I'm going to attack my understanding of artificial intelligence with the same vigor that I did when I had to relearn immunology or relearn pharmacogenomics or genomic health. We studied that as Med 2s. I was back at Ohio State back in the late 90s, and I was not a strong immunologist at that time. And I've had to relearn everything because I might see 15 patients on immunotherapy on a Wednesday. We can study and we can learn and we can update ourselves. We just have to be open to the possibility that it might help our patients.
Almost we have to at this point. So, how about any thoughts on AI helping areas that are maybe underserved or they may not have the access that you and I have in metropolitan urban area? I mean, there are so many areas in the US where they're underserved, the shortage of oncologists, professionals, nurse practitioners, and so on. How are you seeing AI apply to overcome some of these challenges? They're real. I mean, the statistics are very real in terms of the shortage per capita and things like that. Where can we use AI there?
I think it's a moral imperative, right? We know that these disparities exist. We know that they're not actually improving. There are almost no Black or Brown or Appalachian or Native American patients on clinical trials. What if we could screen faster? What if we could conduct better clinical trials with half the number of patients because we developed really good digital twins and we didn't need control groups? What if the drugs that made it in the throughput at the pharmaceutical company level were more effective faster and we didn't have to screen 60 billion compounds over 10 years? We could do it over 10 days and you're getting more effective drugs to the people who need them most faster. From an equity standpoint, think about the inability to screen people for lung cancer across most of the free world, actually, including Europe. They're not really great at lung cancer CTs. We're not either, but we're getting better in the United States. What if there is a blood test that can look at 50 organs at the same time? It's much easier to do a blood draw in Angola or Indonesia or rural India than it is to plug in a $2.6 million CT scanner. Yeah. Right. So for me, I think the wave of the future is going to be that these tools will democratize things like earlier detection, education, extension of providers so that we know that everybody will have a digital AI personal assistant someday that will help guide your health in terms of the food that you eat, the exercise that you undergo, your screening, your prevention, the changes in your metabolites. And that's I wrote about that a couple of weeks ago on Substack. That's systems biology. And that's when we really start to make a major difference is when we start to integrate the 5,000 blood analytes and the fecal microbiome with your epigenetics and the air that you breathe in the town that you grew up in. And I think that's 10 years away. I'm very enthusiastic about that, but I think that we have to take these small steps to understand the power of these technologies, and then we have to govern them. We have to make sure they're legislated and regulated by bodies that understand these things to make sure they're not abused, and so that some don't have and others have not again.
Yeah. I mean, that my question was to you. I was going to ask you, where do you see things long term in AI and precision oncology and short term, but you kind of answered it in terms of where we are heading in 10 years. It seems like, is there anything else you're predicting in the longer term for AI in precision oncology?
Well, I mentioned the AI agents. That's the thing that a lot of us that are interested in AI are reading about now. Everybody understands what GPT is, and people are in varying levels of disrepair figuring that part out. Some of us have been using that for everything for 2 years now, almost 3 years. I think where people are not quite yet prepared is the advent of AI agents, which are going to be able to do what GPT tools do, but also take action. They'll have your credit card number. They'll know what flights you like to book, on what days, on what airline, and what seats. They'll know that you're due for a haircut and call the barber. Yes, I go to a barber, hair salon for some people, and make an appointment for you and put it on your calendar. They'll have everything that you've ever written in email and every step you've ever taken with your Amazon account to be able to nudge you to the things that you needed done faster. And I think that's going to enter medicine probably 5 to 10 years after that.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
mean,
super cool.
it's happening outside of medicine. I have to like, I watched Netflix when there was like a little bit of time, and I used to not want to rate the show I'm reading. They tell you I hate it, I like it, or I love it. And then I realized if I say that, they actually really tailor my taste. I'm like, shit, I like this stuff. I don't have to browse and figure it out. They just tell me, we think you're gonna like this, and they usually spot on 90% of the time.
So true. As they get to know us better, and when they have access to everything you do on Waze and everything you do in Gmail and everything you do on Google, think how much smarter they're going to be if you consent.
Yeah.
And I will say for us, you're talking about nudge theory on Netflix, telling you that this show, would you like to continue watching what you're watching without touching a button? You have every right to abort, but you've been nudged into a behavior. We can use that thing to provide better care to our patients. We are doing that downstairs. We've changed the way we wrench in CBC and CBC with differential in our ER, and 86,000 fewer CBCs with differential were ordered once we pre-checked the CBC box. We never needed differentials on all those people. So I just love that idea of choice architecture, and AI will help us with that.
So all of this is great. My last part, and I know you're very busy, so I don't want to take much of your time, but we have to go into the shortcomings and what people probably call ethical consideration, or there's a lot of that, and it's fair to say any technology does have issues. I mean, it's how you use it or abuse it. So what are the things that worry you? This is everything we talked about is beautiful, wonderful, and so on.
Yeah.
But obviously, there are certain elements of the use of AI in medicine, in oncology, in precision oncology that could be problematic. And I presume you can share with us a little bit of few things that maybe, I don't know what we call them, shortcomings. People try to talk about ethical considerations, data privacy, things of that nature. Um, what are the things that worry you?
Two things mostly. One, I would say bias, right? And I wouldn't make the argument that we're not biased in medicine already. So we have to control for our appropriate control groups is we're going from a biased system to a system that might have bias. And I'd like to make sure that we understand that the data that went into training these large language models is representative of the population we're trying to treat. So again, you understand this as an oncologist. It's a different thing to have a prostate cancer in a Black man who's 48 or an inflammatory breast cancer in a 48-year-old Black woman than middle-aged white guy. And so if we've only trained that prostate cancer prognosticator on middle-aged white guys, we are going to hurt some people that don't have the same disease because there are biologic differences in the way some of these cancers present. So I think it's going to be critically important that we train these tools, just like in clinical trials, with well-matched groups that represent the patient populations we're trying to treat. Number two is, I think for us in oncology, for us in medicine, we are appropriately circumspect about this. We are not going to be jumping into this as eagerly as we would Netflix or Amazon or things like that. And I think what will ultimately shake out in the next couple of years as the regulatory agencies are getting closer, I think in medicine, we're going to have to demand that the vendors make it explainable. It has to be explainable AI. There can be no black boxes hidden from sight, that aren't transparent. And right now, those companies feel like it's proprietary. And I think some of that is changing with the release of DeepSeek and some of the open models that Meta is building. Pretty soon, the technologies are going to be relatively open and ubiquitous. But right now, we still can't see how decisions are made. And I don't think that physicians are going to be ready to accept an output of a machine when we don't understand how it made the decision. And so I think a lot of our medical regulatory bodies are going to say it must be explainable AI by definition, no black box. And if we address those two things in the next 10 years, I think it's going to be compressing 100 years of medical growth into 5 or 10 years. But we need to check those two boxes before any of us should be really jumping into this and ready to accept it to help us make clinical decisions.
So this is a bit like more of a, improving the transparency and improving things, but there are no ethics here, right? Whenever I think of ethical things, I'm thinking, are you really jeopardizing the code of helping people? Are you committing fraud? Are you doing like there's not, is there such issues with AI, or is this a blown out of proportion when people talk about the ethics?
I think we have to consent our patients. We have to include them in the conversations. But I'll say that it's a treat for a patient to have their physician face them in the office again, right? And if my doctors downstairs can say, listen, our conversations will be temporarily recorded and turned into the note so I can be face to face with you again. I care about you, the patient. I want to use whatever tools I can that can deliver time back for us to have those human conversations. That's the whole point of the journal in the first place. I want AI to allow us to have time to make the best possible decisions in the shortest possible time that lets us be human again in the room with the patients. And I don't know an oncologist in the world that wouldn't be excited for that. If these tools are evidence-based, well documented, well proven, published in peer-reviewed journals, it's just like the rest of the tools that we've started to use. And I don't see that the AI part of it is that different from moving to an Excel spreadsheet or using an algorithm. We look at NCCN's 128-page document to figure out how to take care of my breast cancer patient. What if I could skip to the end of that book and the AI takes all of those things together, all of the available clinical trials, and says, hey, this is how I got here, but these are the three best options for your patients. And then we as the human beings make the final decision. We're the final arbiter. And that is one of the things that I think anybody touching AI in cancer care has to be beholden to. And ASCO did put that in their 6 guidelines. So yes, there needs to be a doctor at the wheel.
This is wonderful. I could talk to you for hours, but I know that that's impossible. I really congratulations on everything you're doing, Doug, and I look forward to hopefully contributing even to your journal. I'm passionate about this, and I love what you're doing. Is there anything I forgot to ask you that you'd like to share with viewers and listeners?
No, I would say, I'm maybe a year or two ahead of most of you guys, not that far ahead. And I would encourage anybody listening who's now scared to death or curious, just get in the sandbox. Don't take my word for it. Start to play with these tools. Get online, play with Gemini or Claude or a GPT-4 and see for yourself what this can do helping you plan a vacation, or what it can do planning an anniversary or a wedding or anything, and just see the power of the tools and then apply it for patient care and say, all right, I want you to give me the best evidence, citing your resources or your references for how I might approach a HER2 low patient who's had progression on the following agents, and give me all the citations you've got. And then you check its work. And then as you get better and better at refining these prompts, you'll understand that the tool is only as good as the user, and that the more articulately you can propose the prompt to the engine, the better the answers will be. Just like when you ask a patient a question, you already are prompt engineering when you're in the room with a patient. You're asking very, very specific questions to get very specific answers. And when you get over the fact that this isn't a Google search, you're having a conversation with an assistant. Talk to it like that. Ask it these questions, and you might be pleasantly surprised. It is going to be a big part of your life, whether you know it or not now. People like me are squawking a year or two ahead of time, but 2 years from now, you'll be like, wow, this is amazing stuff. I wish I would have learned it earlier.
It's like the internet. At some point, some people were skeptic about the internet. Dr. Doug Flora on Healthcare Unfiltered, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.